really got to try on that left-hand side. What happened?
Oh, but I'm going up and over and bloody head over biscuit. It wasn't enough stability there for myself, but no, I was busting for a bit of meat this game. It didn't seem to work out.
Hello, cheers, and welcome to the Scrum of the Earth podcast, the weekly show for news, reviews, great interviews, and so much more, all about the world of rugby. My name is David Lawrence. I'm an American rugby fan who follows the game wherever I can find it, all over the globe. If you'd like to get in touch, I'm on Blue Sky @ofscrum, and you can always just send an email to thescrumoftheearth@gmail.com if you're so inclined. Well, another blockbuster weekend for sure, so why don't we get this thing on the road? Starting, as always, with our current updates. You know, not a ton to report from Scrum HQ here. My son's best friend, who happily lives right across the street from us, had a birthday this weekend. So there were things like, you know, a trip to the trampoline park, pizza, cupcakes, an epic Nerf battle. So his pal is actually a leap year baby, so he didn't actually have a real birthday this year, so they just kind of took the whole weekend, which seems pretty cool. I don't know, even though he's only had 2 birthdays, I keep making my little Pirates of Penzance references, trying to sing songs, and he doesn't seem too impressed. It's very strange that an 8/9/2-year-old wouldn't care. Anyway, I feel very lucky that they're such good pals. They're right across the street from each other. It's so easy to get them together, and it's just fun for me to watch them outside playing their insane game that they call snow soccer, which, it's exactly what you're picturing. It's so weird. Like, I don't understand how they do that and never get cold, but I vaguely recall being like that as a kid, too, so I guess it's just kind of a kid growing up in New England thing, I suppose.
It's too good! It's too good! People have to know!
Yes, Isa, it is good news this week, especially if you're a fan of Sevens and Kenya. By the way, I'm about to list some names that I've never heard said out loud, so I'm probably going to butcher them, but I'm going to do my best. Anyway, quoting here from Rugby Pass, quote, Kenya secured a statement semifinal victory against hosts South Africa en route to winning the opening round of the World Rugby HSBC Sevens Challenger in Cape Town. The Lionesses followed that up with a 17-12 win against Argentina in the final to start their quest for HSBC Sevens qualification in fine style. Grace Okulu scored the opening try of the final at Athlone Stadium before Marianella Escalante, sorry about that, crossed to ensure Argentina turned around only 7-5 behind. Second half brace from Judith Okumu, though, put Kenya in control of the contest and ensured that Candela Delgado's late try came too late to impact the result. Earlier on Sunday, the boot of Seneda Nyachio, I think, proved decisive as Kenya edged to a memorable semifinal win against Springbok Women's Sevens, unquote. So I recently chatted on this show with Dallin Stanford. We were both gushing about Kenya, the men's and the women's programs. Looks to me like they've potentially broken through to join that core of teams on the HSBC circuit, possibly the best fan base on the planet as well. Just so good. Okay. That brings us, as always, to our reviews. This week we're starting with the PWR as it was semifinal weekend. On Saturday, it was an epic clash between Saracens and Harlequins. As we discussed last week, these last few rounds really spelled doom in the end for Quins. Quoting here from the official website, quote, Saracens booked their place in the Premiership Women's Rugby Final as they won a thrilling contest, 32-24 against rivals Harlequins at the StoneX Stadium. A stunning individual effort from Jess Breach alongside a brace from Alicia Corrigan and tries from Marley Packer and May Campbell was enough for the home side to come out on top in its battle between the league's second and third place teams at the end of the regular season. Saracens will now play the winners of the reigning champions Gloucester Hartbury and Bristol Bears on the 16th of March in the final back at the Stone X, unquote. So on Sunday then, it was, for me, the big one. The champions, Gloucester Hartbury, taking on the new-look Bristol Bears. Would it be our last sighting of Alona Mar for the foreseeable future? The comms mentioned how Billy Twelvetrees, a frequent mention in his own day on this very show, spent some time with Gloucester and started talking them off a ledge earlier this season. Like, if you recall, they had those 3 losses pretty close together, and they were apparently a little bit shell-shocked. So the way the comms put it, basically, Billy showed up and was like, hey, y'all shouldn't worry about it. And they were like, oh, okay, cool. And here we are. So the Bears, they went up early to make it exciting, but it was kind of all downhill from there. They just never got the cohesion on attack they needed. It felt like a done deal with a full quarter to play. Side note, we watched this game as a family, and when my son clocked the logo, the PWR logo, but he's like super into brands for some annoying reason. But anyway, he was like, oh, PWR, is that for power? Because women have power and not just men? I swear, that is a direct quote, and I've never been so proud. Anyway, of course, the home team showed their dominance once again. They are a machine. They really turned the screws late to make it 36-20, winning as the favorites. Will they break the Mahomes curse and nab 3 titles in a row? So I've talked up Holly Aitchison a lot on this show, but I can't pretend she had the greatest game. It's one of those things destined for like arguments at a bar later, I guess. Like when you're making no-look passes, but they're not going to hand. Are you being too fancy, or do you need better teammates? Anyway, I can just imagine arguing that all night long and taking both sides, frankly. Anyway, she definitely had a few miscues, passing and handling, but I definitely don't think that was the difference. I just think Gloucester are the best team in the PWR right now. So it does give us the sort of by the chalk final Gloucester Hartbury versus Saracens, and I kind of already mentioned it, but this week was the first time I actually noticed, like, these teams had bid to be hosts for the grand final, and Saracens got it. So the final is going to be played at their home. Just a lovely turn of events for them, though I do think they're going to need all the luck they can get. What a year it's been for the PWR. I instantly got sad after these 2 games finished. Like, that was it. Like, we don't get to see these players again for an unknown amount of time, and I am dying for more PWR. What a great year it's been, and I can't wait for that final. Meanwhile, on the other side of the Blue Marble, Super Rugby Pacific was on to round 3. We had another remarkable slate on offer very, very early on Friday where I am. We began the festivities with Moana Pacifica hosting my Highlanders for their first so-called home game of the season. Guess what? They kind of sort of have a new kind of sort of home. Like, it's still in New Zealand, so it's not what they've been promised. You know, they've been playing at Mount Smart or random venues sort of around New Zealand, but this year they have settled down, apparently, at North Harbour Stadium. Like I said, it's still a New Zealand location, not what we were expecting, but, you know, maybe we're getting there. I haven't heard anything about it. Anyway, it's also a cute little place, by the way. Ton of character, great fan base built in, so I'm already happier than I have been in previous seasons, and frankly, the team seem more at home there as well. Anyway, after going on a 21-0 tear in the 10 minutes to end the first half, my guys did exactly what the historic script says and let their guests claw their way back into it, setting up a crazy ending, as always. It was 29-31 with under a minute, and Moana driving, my team failing to score even a point in the entire second half, as they do. But somehow a defensive effort at the end saved their bacon. Moana losing 3 in a row to start the year, and my insane Highlanders, beyond all reason, starting the year at 2-1. Is this entire competition just like a fever dream? Am I actually asleep right now? So watching it, it honestly kind of feels like you're in a scene from Alice in Wonderland that just never made the final cut. Anyway, next up, it was the Waratahs versus the Fijian Drua. Close one. The Taz led 17-12 at halftime, but the Drua got the advantage late, though a penalty try would see the Waratahs home 29-24. The Chiefs, they hosted the Brumbies. The Cowbells were out in full force on a scorching hot day. In fact, I questioned the Chiefs' choice to wear black, allowing their guests to break out their alternate white kit, a mistake the Miami Dolphins would never make, but I guess maybe the rules are different. Either way, we were tied at 15 at the half-hour mark. The Brumbies really hung around until a penalty by Josh Jacob with only a few minutes remaining made it into a multi-score deficit. Anton Leonard-Brown iced it at the death, the Chiefs getting an impressive 49-34 win in Hamilton. Out west, the aptly named Western Force. They were at home in Perth to take on the red-hot Reds, and it turned into another great game. The hosts taking a small lead as we entered the final 10 minutes. You know what? Every single game in Super Rugby, possibly this entire year, has been great. Like, I don't understand why people are so resistant or so against it. So this game, of course, no exception. Filippo Dagunu getting a try to put the Reds back on top with under a minute left. Absolute heartbreak for the Force and a thrilling 24-28 victory for the visitors. But our game of the week was Hurricanes versus Blues, the second part of a doubleheader featuring the same matchup in Opiki. By the way, it was Heritage Round this week, so the Canes, they started the proceedings with a traditional haka, their traditional haka, which I had never seen somehow. Really good one, really fun. However, when you just sit there and look at the rosters, like, it was going to take more than a beautiful performative gesture to handle this Blues team. Discipline turned out to be the home team's biggest issue, giving away 2 yellows and a penalty try in short order, and Ricky Riccatelli smashing through to extend the lead for the visitors. I do wonder, though, if something is just malfunctioning with the Blues at the moment. Like, it felt like they were dominating, but then you look at the score at halftime and you see it's 19-21. Like, scenes very similar to their loss against my Highlanders last weekend. Very odd. Anyway, sure enough, the Canes, they got a late score to take back the lead. Duplessis Carriffy, he was having a monster of a game. Suddenly, the Blues needed 2 scores to keep alive their hopes of staving off an 0-3 start. However, you know it's a good recipe for getting back in it? Give the ball to Mark Talea and watch. Just see what happens. His typically acrobatic try in the right corner gave the Blues the lead that they would hold on to until full time. Another edge-of-your-seat ride from start to finish. The Blues getting their first win of the young season, 29-33. Every one of these games has been great. Anyway, moving over kind of laterally, I suppose, it was the debut round of the new season of Super Rugby Opiki, a sprint of a competition which seems to get better every year. Side note here, friend of the pod, Alice Soper, she has a new podcast called Full Credit, and their first episode was a great preview for this very competition. I highly recommend it, and everything she produces, frankly, because she is awesome. Anyway, as I said, we're going with the Hurricanes Pua versus the Blues matchup as our game of the week. Unfortunately, I picked the lopsided result of the weekend. The Blues, they piled on the Pua to the tune of 10-50, getting a try from their newest player, someone you may have heard of, Portia Woodman-Wycliffe, plus a brace from Ruhe Demont, among others. The hosts were being shut out at halftime and looked overmatched all day, though their 2 second-half tries did look promising. Side note, I mentioned that this was part of a doubleheader in Wellington. I thought it was very cool to see all the Blues players coming out and cheering the men later on. Like, they were like this whole section to themselves, so like the section of awesomeness in the crowd. I don't know why it tickled me so much, but like, and by the way, don't know what the Canes were up to during that. Anyway, our other match this week was Chiefs Manawa taking on Matatu. How excited was I to see Ruby Tui back starting for the home team? It feels like it's been forever. Just instantly put a smile on my face when I saw her name listed out on the wing. Both teams struggled to get their attack clicking in that first half, with the Manawa taking an 8-0 lead into the break. Just before the final quarter, though, Matatu went ahead for the first time despite some exciting back-and-forth play. They held on for a 25-31 win on the road to start their season. Great stuff. Gotta say, not a huge crowd, but the people who were there were so into it. It just looked like an incredible atmosphere in the Waikato. Keep in mind, this is a 4-team competition that plays just 6 rounds. Everyone plays everyone home and away, and that's it. So get on board now. It is going to be gone before you know it. So swinging back up in a sort of generally northerly direction, I suppose, we were back to sort of mildly depleted action in the URC, where we started with a potential stinker in Zebre versus Dragons. But honestly, are Zebre even that bad right now? Like, did they pick their season of doom to finally string a few wins together? Well, as it unfolded, Dragons went up 7-21, but coughed up a try right at the break to make it a close one. To paraphrase Maria Von Trapp, how do you solve a problem like the Dragons? Zebre went up 28-21, and despite giving away 2 yellow cards, still held on to win. Oy vey already with this team. Your final score was 31-21. Another game without even a losing bonus point for the Dragons. So concurrent with that was Munster versus Edinburgh, a great chance for Munster to climb up even higher and for Edinburgh to throw in the towel completely. Edinburgh looked like they had made the right choice to swap out 7 players. They were leading 7-29 as we headed into the lockers. What is up with these teams this year? So despite some questionable discipline late, Edinburgh, they did hold on to hand Munster another confounding defeat. Billy Burns getting a losing bonus point right at the death, 28-34 at Thomond Park. That was the last match to take place in Europe in February. So once we got into March, we started with Lions versus Sharks, a rainy day in Joburg. The field was in rough shape from the opening moments. Are they using the wrong type of grass or something? Maybe it's not supposed to rain there. Anyway, side note, still no Etzebeth. Has anyone seen Eben? Should we be worried about him? As we say here in Massachusetts, irregardless, the Sharks, they couldn't manage a single point in the first half, waited out until the closing moments to register anything at all, handing the Lions a soaking wet win, 38-14. Back in Dublin, we had Leinster facing Cardiff. Let's just say there were several faces on that Leinster team that I was not overly familiar with. Even so, they led at halftime. They stuck their foot fully on the Cardiff throat in the second half, running away with it in palindromic style, 42-24. Oh my God, this Leinster team is so boring. Side note, you know how you can tell for sure that they were definitely fielding a much younger squad? When you see a guy named Charlie Tector, all 22 years old, getting player of the match, and if you're wondering if he's related to cricketer Harry Tector, why yes, they are cousins. So we also had the resurgent Bulls versus Stormers. It was biblical conditions, though the fans were fully in for their home team. The Stormers held a 3-point lead with under 5 minutes left, and it was the Stormers getting a big win on the road, 16-19. Ulster, they looked to right the ship versus Scarlets, who hadn't won in Belfast since January of 2017. It took them until under 2 minutes left to ensure that trend would continue. Doak's conversion putting the lid on a much-needed 30-28 win at the Kingspan. Finally, we had Glasgow home for Ospreys. By the way, I'm suddenly overwhelmed with anxiety that I'm getting all these places wrong. I'm like, wait, was it actually Johannesburg? Wait, where is this one? Is it the Kingspan? Anyway, pretty sure. Anyway, who did we have next? Oh, yes, Glasgow. They were home for Ospreys. Wow, what a game this turned out to be. Ospreys, they looked pretty good, getting up 19-22 at the intermission and holding on to a lead very late. And this is how I ended up writing this out. With under 2 minutes to go, Glasgow had one final shot and were pounding on the door. And what do you know? It was the Scottish player, Macbeth, getting one down to tie it, and the timeless stalwart Duncan Weir nabbing the extras to salt away another victory for the reigning champions. That's what I wrote. But just wait. Just as I had finished writing that, there was in fact a restart. Ospreys got themselves a penalty with almost 2 minutes past full time. Jack Walsh slotted it through. The comms screamed, "From Australia to Australia!" And there was a massive win for Ospreys on the road. The frozen fans in stunned silence as they limped their collective way out of Scotstoun. 31-32 was your final score. How good has this weekend been? Side note on Jack Walsh, while he is an Australian playing in Wales, where was he born? Why, right here in the USA. He was born in Jacksonville, a city described in the show The Good Place as being, quote, easily one of the top 10 swamped cities in northeastern Florida, unquote. And it's hard to argue with that. But of course, our URC game of the week had to be my Connacht at home once again at half a sports ground to face Benetton, who have looked like they've been, building a little something over the last few weeks. Quick side note, that Benetton kit, I know I've talked about it before, but when you have that kit and then in combination with sort of random colors of the various scrum caps out there, it gives the impression of subway cars covered in graffiti just kind of riding by. Just saying. Anyway, my guys looked good to start things off, but where have we seen that before? As I've come to expect, a 2-try advantage early turned into a 19-27 deficit at the break, but Seamus Hurley-Langton got us back in with a punishing try under the post. Connacht held a 1-point lead in the final quarter of play, and an insurance try soon after put it in the bank. Connacht winning again. Is this becoming a habit? Final tally, 38-30 in Galway. As we talked about last week, the logjam in the middle of the URC has to move at some point, but not this weekend. We're still in the very sticky middle at this stage. Leinster, they're obviously in a class by themselves. Glasgow and the Bulls are the only teams in the 40-point range on the table. And then after that, it's mind-boggling. We've got Sharks, Munster, Cardiff, Edinburgh, all in the 30s. And then your current number 8 team, Connacht, are on 29. The next 5 teams are all 1 point off that. Ulster are then 1 below that, and then Zebre 2 off of that. 4 points are all that separate places 8 through 15 on the URC table. That is incredible. Anyway, over in France, the top 14 kept on trucking. Coming into this week, unbelievably, Stade Francais, the drink boxes, they were actually at the very bottom of the table, an eyelash beneath Vannes, and we're hosting Bizarro La Rochelle for our game of the week. Stade, of course, are officially in crisis mode. And by the way, if you haven't listened to Hugh Griffin and Madame Maz, as he calls her on the Top 14 Digest pod, I mean, you're really missing out. It was another great episode, and you always get the cute little key inside tidbits into French rugby. It's a can't miss every single week. Anyway, when you look at these rosters, you think you're looking at top-flight rugby teams, but then something is very wrong for both of them this season. Like the home team, more so by far. The opening quarter bore out that theory with La Rochelle looking like, I can't remember if we're supposed to be good. And meanwhile, Stade looking like, oh my God, we might get relegated. Anyway, they responded with a pretty okay first-half performance, given the fact that La Rochelle looked like they weren't sure the game had started, and they led 19-3 at the intermission. Side note, they really tried hard to get a camera and or an interviewer over to Ronan O'Gara, and they were wildly unsuccessful. There was something, I don't know. It was like, what I wrote down was like, it was like a fencing match where they each sort of spot each other a touch. Is that even a thing? Am I saying that right? So in this case, both teams were like, ici, il y a le carte rouge. And then they just played the match 14 players each. Like they all just kind of decided, like, okay, that's what we're doing. So not much seemed to work right for the away side. And they hadn't scored a try with 10 minutes still to play. Crazily, I mean, I went off and played around a Pictionary with my son. By the time I got back, suddenly it was 22-17 with additional yellow cards, just mayhem. La Rochelle somehow had one more chance. The clock read, trying to steal a win after looking like hot garbage all day long. But no, it was Stade holding on for a 22-17 win, somehow epitomizing the bizarre world that is the top 14. So, just quickly going around the horn, we had Lyon versus Toulon. The home team showed a lot of grit, taking down the number 3 team in the league, 27-20. Parole City were back at the big house for Cast. They managed to steal a win, 21-17. Also, Racing faced off against Pau in Paris, and they again looked completely runnerless, disappointing their increasingly angry fan base, 29-47. Toulouse, they were looking to take Vaughan back down a peg, and that is exactly what they did, tripling up their guests 63-21. And then the late game on Saturday was Perpignan taking on my Border Beagles, UBB. My guys got potentially the quickest try in top 14 history and added another to make it look pretty scary early on, but Perpignan, they got back in it in the second half. Their crowd at fever pitch. Oh my word, the scenes in French rugby. My guys did hold on, winning 17-29, and they are just so much fun. They're like Anti-Leinster. Anyway, on Sunday, to close out the round, it was a bit of something new, a bit of freshness, as neither UBB nor Toulouse were involved. Instead, it was Bayonne versus Clermont, and nothing to write home about. It was 31-18. Maybe that's why we always have one of those top teams in Sunday. Anyway, that does mean after round 18, Vaughan, they're back at the bottom of the table. Toulouse are 5 points clear of UBB at the top, and all is right in the world. Okay, coming back to the U.S. for round 3 of Major League Rugby. There was only the one game on Friday. It was stupidly named Anthem at the Mecklenburg County Sportsplex to take on the might actually be good Miami Sharks. Turned into a real cracker. Anthem losing by just a single point, 31-32. A try by Thomas Beckerman with maybe 7 minutes left making the difference. On Saturday, D.C. were hosting San Diego, and while the Legion came back down to earth a bit, it was still a clear victory, 10-26. The rugby team of Latter-day Saints were back in Utah for NOLA Gold, and NOLA again came up short, getting well beaten, 55-21. What's up with Utah? Houston, they also looked good, beating the Seattle Seawolves, 24-21, and I'm starting to wonder, as I've mentioned, so Phil from the Jacks Rangers show and he and I were both speculating a lot and loudly that San Diego are, past their sell-by date, let's say, and maybe we got that wrong. Maybe we should have been looking much further up that coast into Washington State. So finally, your clear and obvious choice for the game of the week was my Free Jacks back at the scene of their 2023 championship win, SeatGeek Stadium in Chicago, home of the Second City Pupsters. But you know what? As far as I can tell, this game didn't happen. I guess it might have gotten lost in a void of some kind. Maybe there was a blackout rule of some sort. Maybe I blacked out. But anyway, your result definitely wasn't 36-7. Why would you even ask me that? I mean, come on, get off my back. What's up? Well, my friends, by the music, you'll know it's time for this week's Diamond in the Ruck Award. And this week, the award goes to Emma Singh. Ms. Singh, your performance this weekend was next level as you showed off your power, your elusiveness, and your massive rugby IQ in your team's win to make it to another grand final. Your ability to shift direction on a dime while still shoving players off left and right. I mean, there are times when you look completely untackleable, and your spark made a huge difference on Sunday. Emma Singh, congratulations to you, for you are this week's Diamond in the Ruck. Well done. Okay, that of course brings us to our updates and previews. This coming weekend looks pretty big. Actually, you know what? I faked myself out. I wrote down that it's the Cup final for the PWR. It's not. They get a week off. Dang. Of course, the champs will be looking to make it 3 in a row. Can't wait for that. Anyway, this actual coming weekend, it's the penultimate round for men's Six Nations, which will feature a couple potentially boring matchups: Scotland versus Wales, England versus Italy. But it also brings us Ireland versus France, a game that could potentially change the balance of power in the Six Nations entirely this year. Down in Super Rugby Pacific, we've got round 4. In the OPK, it's round 2. MLR will bring us round 4 as well. And of course, I'm pretty sure it's 642 of 9,347 in the top 14. We're also just a few weeks away from the Sevens down in Hong Kong. What a party that is going to be. Well, my friends, that does it for another week, and I'm a little bit exhausted, I'm not going to lie. This weekend was absolutely incredible. So many good games, but so much so that I think I literally need a nap right about now. Wake me when all of this snow has finally melted and when I don't have to stumble my way down to my car anymore. To all of you across the globe, cheers. Talk to you soon. And be well.
It gives me great pleasure to be here today.
Oh, it does, neat. I wish I could get up at 11:30 every morning after being out all night God knows where.
You want to tempt the wrath of the whatever from high atop the thing?